Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. It's Dhaiphong. How are you doing today? Let me know how I sound. I've been having some ups and downs with my audio, just ups and downs with it. So sometimes it sounds a lot quieter than I would like it to. Still try, it's always it's a long process here. But thank you all for coming to another Left Lens live stream. Please do like this video as you are coming in. Like the video, help boost the algorithm. And if you are new to the channel, of course, subscribe to the channel, hit that notifications bell so you know that I'm live. Help me do a little bit of a sound check as well. So if someone would kindly oblige in the chat, just let me know how I sound, how the volume is. Sometimes I get complaints that I'm too quiet, and I don't really understand why that is. My laptop has some faulty features. It's not of the best judge of volume. So please do help me out if you can in the chat. But while you're coming in, of course, like the video. Like the video, like the video. That helps boost the algorithm. That's probably the most important thing you can do, other than considering becoming a sustainer of this channel and all of my work at patreon.com/DannyHighFong. I'm about 5 subscribers away from 500. I was hoping to reach that by the end of the month, which is 5 days away. And I'm still working toward making my goal that I did reach monetarily sustainable as well. But that takes some work, as it is a recession. Joe Biden's administration is denying that there is an economic crisis afoot, but indeed there is one. And so a lot of people are struggling. Actually, for most working class people, there's been an economic crisis for more than a decade and a half now, if not longer. 2/3 of my life, some people would argue, ever since 2000, the so-called dot-com bubble crisis. But nonetheless, people are struggling, so I do understand where people are coming from. But if you can, the way that this work sustains itself is through you all, through those who are able to sustain this work on patreon.com/DannyHighFong. It is definitely appreciated. But continue to like and share the stream. Definitely like and share the stream. I want to say hello to folks before I get into this. So hello, Kristen Gomez. Hello. Ro Khanna, Neo Khanna, always shielding the wrong people. I like that name, Neo Khanna. That's a good one. Because we're definitely going to be talking about his neo-con tendencies today. Sid, I might be, says, like your IG. Thank you. I don't always keep up with my Instagram enough, but I'm glad that you like it. I didn't even get to share this on my IG. Just ran out of time. But thank you for the kind words. Good to see you again, Petamilo. Good to see you again. They live, we sleep. Happy Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday. I got the nice gift of knowing that the construction by my apartment is going to start soon, which is going to affect the times that I stream. I'm probably going to be streaming. My wife is going to start working overnights, so I may move to later in the evenings. I may have to move to late in the evenings, to be honest. A couple of times a week if I can, but this construction, once it starts, it's going to make it impossible to stream from here during the work days. And I got to figure out my part-time gig too, because I have clients. That I see, and I got to reschedule them. It's a pain in the ass. But happy Tuesday. That's my happy Tuesday message, is good news always, right? I was commiserating with the hardware store that's inside of the building I live in. We were just complaining because we are in for what is going to be a years-long project. So good to see you. I be jamming. Thanks for the sound check. Thank you. Hello, Siam Slamma Jamma. Hello, Slamma Jam. We got an IB jamming and we got a Slamma Jamma. Hello. Did anyone ever believe that the American puppet politicians were this stupid? I mean, Ro, WTF? His own family doesn't give SHIT about him. Why would the Chinese or anyone else care? Effing tools. Yeah. Thank you, Kristen, for being a proud patron. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for subscribing. It's really gratifying, and thanks for upping and kind of giving a big shout out to you. Good to see you, Martin. Hello, and then hello, Albert. Hello. So I'm glad we sleep that my misery during the day will benefit you during your day, my evening. Look, there's always a silver lining, right? And certainly having the days free might be nice for me as well. I'll just have to figure out a way to live with the noise. That's what we're doing right now. I mean, I am. This is how I am. I'm like, how do I make it so this apartment isn't like living through, I don't know, a construction site every day. But yeah, like the stream, everyone. Like the stream. We're gonna get started very soon. Like the video. Like the video. We got a good program today. We're gonna focus on what Ro Khanna said. I'm gonna play that, and then I'm gonna go over Taiwan and its history. And there's a really brief China Daily article that is kind of like, for me, the gold standard of what it means to understand the history of Taiwan. And yes, I know it's China state affiliated media. It's a good article and it's very short. It feels, I don't know, I didn't actually look at the word count, but it feels like less than 1,000 words. And in most Chinese media, I know, because I've written for CGTN, Global Times, they don't really like over 800 words. So I'm guessing it's under 800. And yeah, so it's a good article. We'll go over that, and then we'll go over something that's happening in California that Ro Khanna isn't speaking up about. Neither is Nancy Pelosi. Surprise, surprise. So I'm going to leave that as kind of like a bonus. That's kind of like the end. That will end the stream. Hopefully we can get through all of this in the next hour and 15 minutes or so. That's how long I plan to be on. And so, Brandon, hello. Hi, Brandon. And hello, Hung Tua. Good to see you. So the Indians are all right. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't generalize all of them, but I know that India, there is a large contingent of people, especially a class of people in India, and of course the diaspora, that have pretty choice thoughts about China. And it's a really sad thing. I think it's a product of caste. I think it's a product of colonialism. I think it's a part of a lot of things, but it's really unfortunate that relations have had to go that way. And you see on Twitter, I know personally on Twitter, oh my gosh, whenever there's something trending on Twitter about China and I comment on it, especially when there's something hot, like right now, I don't think it's as hot, but when there is some, for example, in 2020, 2021, when there was all these ramp ups of militarism, it's happening still, but when there was, ships being sent to the South China Sea, all of that, I had a lot of Twitter, supposedly India Twitter, right? The green, white, yellow flag Twitter, they would come out kind of like the Ukraine flag Twitter, and just the most racist things you could think of, right? It's just absolutely just horrendous. But anyway, nonetheless, we ignore those haters because they don't mean nothing. And another announcement, I've been writing a bit less lately. I think I'm going to try to write a shorter piece maybe this week. I was feeling a little something about it, but there's something about these times where I feel like coming on here is just as valuable. And I'm going to try to keep up the weekly writing, but I've been writing a little less than that, just a little bit, a little less than weekly. But I definitely want to get back into it. There's been so much happening. I think I'll definitely have to dig into the Taiwan Pelosi trip and all that's transpired around that. But yeah, no, I've been writing a lot less, and sometimes that happens. I'm trying to definitely balance things out in my life, because sometimes it can get to be, like all of us, whether it's our work, whatever, all the responsibilities we juggle. So nonetheless, I have been writing a little less, and hopefully I can get back to that. But I've been coming on here quite frequently and trying to balance that out and just make it so I'm providing some kind of worthwhile media, media contributions, because that's really what I'm trying to do. Yeah, Brandon says you can't force quality journalism and Loa Socialisti. Hello, welcome back. Glad to see you streaming so consistently. Yeah, and I'm thinking about I need to connect with Rockfin. They've been trying to connect with me. I've been just like inundated with other responsibilities. Like I cleaned my whole apartment, and yeah, there's just been a lot going on. So anyway, let's get to it. Keep liking the stream. Keep hitting that subscribe button. All the good stuff. Share it. Liking and sharing is the best way to help, of course, outside of course, becoming a sustainer of the channel on Patreon, patreon.com/DannyHighFong. As I said before, if you just came in and didn't hear it, I'm up 5 subscribers away from my goal for the month of 500. And I'm still working toward keeping my monthly income goal sustainable, which is tough in these hard times. So anything that you can do to help is very much appreciated. Substack is also in the description. All the places where you can contribute are in the description. In any event, let's get to it then. Let's get to it. So I don't generally talk about Ro Khanna. Let me be quite frank. And I'll tell you why I don't. First of all, Ro Khanna, to me, from everything I've followed, I've been following Jimmy Dore's coverage, Brianna Joy Gray's coverage. There's been a lot of people talking directly to Ro Khanna. Sometimes on Twitter, I'll see Aaron Mate. Ro Khanna is a hardcore neocon militarist. And I don't say that lightly. He's a hardcore neocon militarist. And he's a Silicon Valley guy. So I'm not so surprised by that. But I never really saw him within the framework of the squad and the significance. To me, he doesn't come out of any kind of social movement. He's a professional class bourgeois politician. And he just happens to adopt some progressive sounding messaging and jumped on the Bernie Sanders bandwagon. That's just how it's felt. That's my observation from what I've seen. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders and the squad have kind of occupied this kind of grassroots milieu, right? It's like, ooh, look, we're grassroots Democrats. A myth, in my opinion, but that's kind of why I focus a little bit more on especially the squad, and Bernie Sanders a little less, because Bernie Sanders did the old I'm going to stab myself in the back. So that's why I focus more on them, less on Ro Khanna. But Ro Khanna makes it hard not to just ignore, because Ro Khanna says all this hawkish BS. He's a hawk in a lot of ways. I've seen him on Russia, Ukraine. He's very much just all in blue, yellow flag, Ukraine flag nonsense. He was very on board with Russiagate. He hasn't questioned anything when it comes to the foreign policy establishment. And that just made him another kind of politician to me. So it's like, okay, he's another politician, and he's probably the least prominent in terms of his vision, right? In terms of his visibility, in my opinion. I'd much rather spend my time on Nancy Pelosi, which I have been doing lately around Taiwan. But when it comes to Ro Khanna, I felt today was the day that I give Ro Khanna some attention, because I know that's what he likes. I know that's why he does certain things. I know that's why he comes on programs on the left that people give him credit for, and I'm not going to hate on him for doing this. I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, well, you're just whatever. You're going on Jimmy Dore's show. You're going on Brianna Joy Gray's show, and you're just hamming it up, right? You're just trying to build some credibility. I'm not going to go there. I don't care. Look, the guy obviously everyone is an individual as well, right? This is a dialectic, and I hopefully will talk about this in my writing. There's always a dialectic between the forces kind of in control of society, the broad systemic forces, and us as individuals, right? We can't negate the role of the individual, as much as the United States as an individualistic empire, as one rooted in this heinous ideology of individualism, tends to just completely ignore the system and how we experience things collectively. There's also the other side, right, of just completely looking at everyone as just puppets, right? Everyone's a puppet. No, there are, right? If everyone was just a puppet, in my opinion, no one would be trying to challenge the squad. If there was knowledge, right? I know that the squad is not that. I know what they are, but I also believe there's individual agency, and you can at least fulfill a particular role, maybe use some of that leverage, whatever it is, right? Whether it's just ideological leverage, whether it's just political leverage, and make some waves, right? Create a crisis. And so I'm not going to hate on Ro Khanna for going on other people's programs, but, and this is the but Ro Khanna, I mean, this guy, he's a neocon hawk. I mean, he doesn't do anything outside of the foreign policy establishment. He doesn't. He's with them. And why wouldn't he be with them? Silicon Valley and the military industrial complex are like this. They're one and the same. They rely on the same infrastructure, the same profiteering, the same, it is a very similar basis to it. They need each other. Really, a lot of imperialism now is driven by the corporations that comprise of Silicon Valley and their military industrial complex partners. That's just how things work at this point. And that's because the United States is desperate to hold on to whatever technological and economic supremacy it had developed, but has now lost, mainly to China, but it's just losing it on its own and falling behind more and more and more. So, of course, somebody like Ro Khanna, who's deep into that world, he comes out of that world. I don't expect him to be for peace, but given the kind of role he's tried to play, like everyone's everyone, right? Oh, I'm everyone's lefty politician. Well, he's got to answer to some things. That's why I wanted to talk about him today, because he was on CNN and he played lapdog to Nancy Pelosi. It's not the first time he's played lapdog Nancy Pelosi, forced the vote. He didn't say anything in support of people who were saying, well, we need to force a vote for Medicare for all in order to make it a real priority, in order for the political class to know that there are people who are angry, who are willing to withhold their support for you if you don't support Medicare for all properly. We also know around Russia, Ukraine, he's been all in for the sanctions on Russia. And we know during the bailout, during the COVID-19 crisis, he was all for the major bailout. He didn't question at all of that money that went to major corporations and the richest people in the world, trillions of dollars upward from people like us, working class people, people who don't have a lot, right? It was another massive wealth transfer. And he said nothing about it. He defended it. Oh, we were in a crisis. We needed to do it like that. Not really. Well, it's always bailout for the banks and never for the workers, never for the poor, never for the people. It's always bailouts for the richest, for the wealthy, for the capitalist class, the 1%. And he defended that as a so-called Bernie Sanders-ish lefty politician. Well, now Ro Khanna is being a lapdog for Nancy Pelosi in other ways. They serve in the same state. He's in a different district, I think just to the south of the Bay Area. And Nancy Pelosi, for some context, if you haven't caught some of my past streams, Nancy Pelosi is doing something incredibly reckless, which is she somehow, some way allowed for some kind of secret trip. I don't think this was intentional. I don't think she said, okay, I'm going to tell you all when I'm going on a trip to Taiwan. She had a planned trip to Taiwan that's been leaked. There's no date exactly, but it was said to be the coming month. So soon, within the next 30 days, ostensibly. And she's the third in command in the White House, right? It goes president, vice president, speaker of the House. So if the president, Joe Biden, is incapacitated, highly possible. If the vice president of the United States is incapacitated, Kamala Harris, I don't think physically that's going to happen, but politically she's not really, let's say, loved by the people. If Kamala Harris for some reason couldn't serve as president after Joe Biden, it would be Nancy Pelosi. So Nancy Pelosi thought it was a great idea to schedule a trip during the Russia special military operation of Ukraine, record inflation, record low public opinion for Joe Biden, extremely tense relations with China, so on and so forth. All this discussion about, is there a recession or is there not? Maybe there's a recession. Who knows? I mean, that there's a level of panic, I think, in the overall economic and political situation in the United States. Just didn't seem like an ideal time to say, well, let's push the envelope even further with China. And so when you're third in command in the White House like Nancy Pelosi, and you say, I'm going to go on a trip to Taiwan and talk to their officials independently, you're sending a message to China that says you're actually acknowledging Taiwan as an independent nation, as an independent entity. And that is a gross violation of the One China principle, what's called the One China policy, that we're going to go over, outlined in so many different contexts, legally, in terms of international law, bilaterally, in terms of the U.S. and China's diplomatic joint communiques, etc. So Nancy Pelosi, as literally the third in command, really, in the White House, in Congress, in the state, going to Taiwan is a big error. And China's already made it clear more than a few times now, because this has come up over the last 72 hours or so. A lot of conversation has been happening about the foreign ministry of China, all the spokespeople, Wang Wenbin, everyone is saying there's going to be consequences. And those consequences are possibly military, because China has a position that it's going to abide by all of the agreements, the joint communiques, UN Resolution 2758, everything that talks about one China and China's rightful place as the representative at the United Nations. It'll abide by all of those agreements, all of them, up until there is interference that pushes for separatism and a possible independent Taiwan. Then China says it is their right to militarily intervene to protect its sovereignty. And how could you blame China for that when the United States pumps arms into Taiwan through continuous arms sales, a violation of a joint communique that we'll get into, has militarized the island, militarized the Taiwan Straits, and then the region at large, South China Sea, everything, that whole Asia Pacific region, and has meddled. This isn't the first time. There has been tips. Last November, there was a delegation among political representatives of the United States. Mark Esper recently went. Mike Pompeo recently went. I mean, there's just been constant activity, political activity. We know the Trump administration went really far with the Taipei Act. And we know recently that the State Department took off wording that said that Taiwan and China were one, that there was a one China policy. They took out the wording to that in a recent statement. So there's a lot of tension here. And Nancy Pelosi is more than willing to ratchet it up to the point where perhaps there's a conflict. Perhaps there's a military confrontation that could happen here. And Ro Khanna is all about it. We got to hear him. Let's hear him. So we've got to, let's look at this. Let's look at what Ro Khanna has to say. I can put on my my headphones. So I'm just going to find the tweet. Keep liking the video while you are waiting. Of course, share the video, and then, of course, subscribe to Patreon if you are able. But here we are going. Here we are. So Ro Khanna put this on Twitter today. Oh, yesterday, it looks like. So this was yesterday. He was on Wolf Blitzer's program. Lucky him. And this is what he had to say. Who are they to say that Speaker Pelosi shouldn't go to Taiwan? The Chinese Communist Party, so sounds like a right-winger when he says it like that, doesn't get to dictate the travel schedule of the Speaker of the House. So here you have Ro Khanna doing the very mic almost fell. Here you have Ro Khanna doing the reductive argument here, totally reducing this to something about travel schedules. Absolutely ridiculous. It has nothing to do with the travel schedule. But here's what he had to say. It's even worse than what he posted on Twitter.
On a different issue, Congress. Have you? President Biden has said the U.S. military believes a Taiwan visit by the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is, quote, not a good idea right now. You sit on the Armed Services Committee. Should she call off this possible trip to Taiwan?
No, she should not. I respect Speaker Pelosi. I mean, we're not going to let the Chinese Communist Party dictate where the Speaker of the House should go. Taiwan is an economic partner with us. That doesn't mean that her going there is somehow not recognizing the one China policy. She should absolutely go. And we need to speak out on human rights issues in China. And we need to speak out about the trade deficit in China. So I fully support her going.
But is it worth potentially, God forbid, provoking some sort of military response from the Chinese?
They should realize that that would be the worst thing they could do. I mean, they've seen this president, our country's resolve in Ukraine with rallying NATO. They've seen the sanctions on Russia. I mean, they would cripple their entire economy. They are so dependent on the United States in terms of the trade that we have. So we shouldn't allow them to bluff and dictate to America, the greatest nation in the world, where our Speaker of the House should travel. I mean, who are they to say that Speaker Pelosi shouldn't go to Taiwan?
Congressman Ro Khanna, thanks as usual for joining us.
All right. I mean, that to me, that's just like vomiting up imperialism. That's all Ro Khanna did there. To end with we are the greatest nation in the world. Who are they? I mean, that's just plain racism. That is imperialist privilege. That is race. That is just racism. That's saying that we are better than China. We are better than China. China has no right to dictate anything here. Well, actually, Ro Khanna, actually, they do have the right. Actually, international law says they have the right. Why? Because Taiwan is part of China. And everything that the United States has agreed to in relation to the one China policy that Ro Khanna says Nancy Pelosi will be following here says the exact opposite. Nothing in the one China policy says, oh, yes, high-level officials, the highest level officials from the United States can meet independently with Taiwan's officials, that is okay. There's nowhere where it says that. He calls Taiwan an economic partner. Taiwan isn't a country. So he is violating the one China policy just in his words. Taiwan's not your economic partner. If you're doing business with Taiwan, you're doing business with China. That's what international law says. That's what the joint communiques say. That's what Taiwan has said for the longest time when it was the Republic of China, when the KMT was the ruling party there. While they didn't think, oh, well, the mainland government is the government, they definitely didn't think of themselves as an independent country. It's only been since the DPP has come into power over the last several years that this separatist ideology has been fueled, and Ro Khanna is just reinforcing it. And so here Ro Khanna says so many egregious things. We can just break them down one by one. Let's listen to it again. I'm going to stop as he's talking. So let me just fast forward. We don't need to hear Wolf Blitzer. Is it worth it? Okay, yeah, we get it. Is it worth it? Let's see what he says.
No, she should not. I respect Speaker Pelosi. I mean,
I respect Speaker Pelosi. Why does he have to say he respects Nancy Pelosi? Is that not a given? Doesn't he? To me, that just sounds like you're kissing Nancy Pelosi's feet. That you have a ball and chain on you and you are her lapdog. And that whenever she says come, you come. Whenever she says sit, you sit. That's what it sounds like here. I respect Speaker Pelosi. You can't get... Do you say that? He wasn't even criticizing her here. He didn't say, I respect Nancy Speaker Pelosi, but she's wrong. I get that tactic. That's an age-old tactic. We all are familiar with that one. He wasn't even doing that. He was just kissing her feet. I respect Speaker Pelosi. She should go.
We're not going to let the Chinese Communist Party dictate where the Speaker of the House should go?
The Chinese Communist Party, China, is not dictating where Nancy Pelosi should go. UN Resolution 2758 is dictating where Nancy Pelosi should go. The 3 joint communiques between the US and China is dictating where Nancy Pelosi should go. The 1992 consensus between China and the 2 governments, the government in Taiwan, Republic of China, and the People's Republic, the mainland government, that consensus is dictating where Nancy Pelosi should go. What it says is China is one. There are 2 different ideas of what it should be, but only one of them sits at the United Nations, and Taiwan is part of China, meaning that if you treat China independently, if you treat Taiwan independently, then you risk violating all of that, all of what's stipulated, which is a provocation. And it's not like this is just the first time the United States is talking about Taiwan in this way. No, there's a long-standing policy of egregious interference. This isn't the first time. This is a long-standing pattern. A long-standing pattern. We went over it on this program. Long-standing pattern of interference. A lot of it is military interference. A lot of it is militarism straight up. And Ro Khanna has said nothing about that.
Taiwan is an economic partner with us. That doesn't mean that her going there is somehow not recognizing the one China policy. She should absolutely go.
So he says here, Taiwan is an economic partner with us. Actually, sure, there are trade relations between Taiwan and the United States, right? Taiwan is kind of like a one country, 2 systems model. Taiwan is probably the most autonomous out of all of the various it's not a special administrative region even. It has a lot of autonomy that was conceded upon based on a whole lot of different factors, but one of which was 22 years that the United States pressured the United Nations, used its influence over the United Nations to keep the mainland government, the People's Republic of China, out of the United Nations altogether. And that also came with economic sanctions. So 22 years after 1949, the United States prevented China its rightful place at the United Nations and tried to starve it economically, while recognizing the Republic of China as China, and it just happened to be in Taiwan, governing in Taiwan through martial law and all sorts of really repressive and oppressive policies. But I digress. The point here is, no, Taiwan isn't your economic partner as a nation. You might do business there, but you're still violating the one China policy by making a political statement through a visit. Third in command. Imagine if one of China's foreign ministry spokespeople, imagine if Wang Wenbin, imagine if anyone in China's foreign ministry came to California, Mr. Ro Khanna, came to California and said, we're going to meet. We have economic relations with companies in California. We're going to go there and we're going to talk to the separatists. We're going to talk to those forces in California who want to separate from the United States, because those exist. I mean, it may not be a majority, but those exist. There's very strange separatism all over the United States, but that exists. Would that be allowed? Would China's foreign ministry be allowed to do that? Somehow I don't think so. I really don't think they would be allowed to do that. Wang Yi, the top foreign minister, he would not be allowed to go to California or to go to Texas. If Wang Yi said, all right, I'm going to go to Texas. Let's talk to those secessionists in Texas. They want to be their own country. We have business relations with companies in Texas. I mean, this is, and then somebody in the chat, Anthony, said Hawaii. Imagine, yeah, we're going to go to Hawaii. Hawaii is a colony, basically. I mean, all of the United States is a colony at some level. Hawaii is a colony. Wang Yi goes to Hawaii, meets with the indigenous nations there, says, we support you. We do business here. Not allowed. Actually, RIMPAC is happening, which happens off the coast of Hawaii. I'm sure those warships and all of those military exercises and military personnel would have something to say about Wang Yi making that trip. So China has something to say about it. It is, don't cross that line. Don't do it. You'd be highly mistaken to cross that line. Let's continue.
And we need to speak out on human rights issues in China.
We need to speak out about human rights issues in China. He also said something about trade.
We need to speak out about the trade deficit in China.
The trade deficit in China. Now I don't even know what he's talking about. I think he's talking about the fact that the United States runs this huge deficit. But he's saying in China. It doesn't make any sense. He's obviously nervous here. Oh, I'm messing up my words. I don't know what I'm saying. He's nervous. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's saying dumb stuff now. He's saying stupid stuff. So he's obviously talking about that the United States runs a huge deficit in like everything now because it doesn't produce anything and China produces things. And so, of course, there's going to be a deficit. The United States loves running deficits. Finance capital loves deficits because deficits, what does that mean? It means, more debt, right? How do you leverage deficits? You pile on debt on top of it so you can equalize that relationship. And that's what finance capital has done to the United States. That has nothing to do with China. China is not doing that to themselves or doing that to the United States. Human rights issues, give me a break. We're going to talk about a human rights issue that Ro Khanna hasn't spoken at all about ever. But it's happening and it's being reported on and there's some pretty solid data on it. So let's continue. I'm not saying it on purpose because I want you to wait for that.
Fully support her going.
But is it worth potentially, God forbid, provoking some sort of military response from the Chinese?
They should realize that that would be the worst thing they could do. I mean, they've seen this president, our country's resolve in Ukraine with rallying NATO. They've seen the sanctions on Russia. I mean, they would cripple their entire economy. They are so dependent on the United States in terms of the trade that we have. So we shouldn't allow them to bluff and dictate to America, the greatest nation in the world, where our Speaker of the House should travel. I mean, who are they to say that Speaker Pelosi shouldn't go to Taiwan?
So much here. So much here. Look, first of all, he's using the Russia special military operation Ukraine as an example of how China should be worried. Oh no, Russia's doing better economically. Russia's ruble is doing better than it was before the special military operation. Now, Russia's economy, I wouldn't say is growing magnificently, but surely the ways in which sanctions have blown back on Europe and the United States are by far more impactful than they have been on Russia. Russia was already in a very tight and tough situation before the sanctions that came down, the increased sanctions. It was already in a tight and tough situation and doing everything it can to grow despite it. Now, the United States and Europe have done everything they can to sabotage themselves. Everything they can to sabotage themselves. Inflation is rampant in part because of these sanctions. Energy is extremely costly right now, and Europe is in for a real world of hurt. So talking about the resolve, and this would hurt China more, is absolutely ridiculous. China has control over its currency. Private banks, big monopolies, have control over the United States' dollar. That's a whole world of difference. China's government has control over its money supply. You have parasites, predators in control of the U.S.'s money supply. So I don't want to hear that this is going to affect China more if China were to defend its sovereignty through military means. That's ridiculous. Actually, the United States, this is just hubris. This is absolute stupidity. The United States economy would crumble if China were to do anything of the sort that Nancy Pelosi is provoking here. The consequences, as China has said, as their foreign ministry has said over and over again, they will fall on the U.S. side. China will figure things out. China will survive. China has a united population. China has a 95+% approval rating. That will go up to close to 100 were there to be a war between China and the United States. Let's not get it twisted here. There are very few forces in China. Those neoliberals, they call them just liberals over there. Those liberals, those capitalists who may feel a little more, how should we say, emboldened to try to undermine the Communist Party of China. No, most of them would huddle under the central government because, well, their existence would go bye-bye. They would not exist anymore during a war if they were to defect. Is the U.S. side going to absorb them? Are they going to become some sort of, how should we say, what do they call them in Cuba, the worms, the gusanos? Are they going to become some kind of a Chinese gusanos? No. The United States isn't going to absorb them. Look at the racism in the United States. Look at the absolute incredible amount of anti-Asian racism, anti-China racism here. No. In times of war, forget about it. No way. You have Chinese scientists, you have Chinese institutions, the Confucius Institute, all of this being targeted now in a new Cold War. Imagine what the environment would be like in a hot war. No. Look, 99% of the Chinese population would be united. And the United States' population, a lot of people may not like China now, but in a hot war situation, what will people think? Will people be all in? Highly doubt it. The war fatigue in the United States is incredible. A losing war to China, you would lose in a second. First of all, the United States can't defend Taiwan, even if Taiwan was to be defended. It can't. It's geographically impossible. Its weapons would not work. There's not an operation in the world that would save the United States here. The United States would waste a whole lot of resources, get pummeled, and then what do you think the United States would do? This is why Scott Ritter and I had this conversation. What do you think the United States is going to do? They're going to look at the nuclear weapons option. They're going to look at a nuclear exchange option. That's what's at stake here. That is exactly what's at stake here. And Ro Khanna is so ignorant with his American exceptionalist filth, his just pitiful love, the greatest country in the world, love for the United States empire, kissing the feet of Nancy Pelosi, sniffing her farts, absolutely up her ass, talking about the United States is the greatest country in the world. Look at our resolve. Look at Biden and the sanctions. Look at NATO, unify, cheering on endless war, cheering on NATO, which is trying to start its own World War III, its own global confrontation with Russia, and has also added China into that mix, cheering on that monstrosity that has killed millions of people in places far beyond its so-called North Atlantic jurisdiction, which is fake and false in and of itself. This guy, Ro Khanna, is absolutely despicable. I'm trying to get him on the program. He probably won't even entertain it. I don't even know how to get in touch with the guy. I'm trying to get in touch with people who may be able to help me, but it seems like Ro Khanna has also burned a lot of bridges himself with his little attempt to be outside, to talk to people outside the Democratic Party, ostensibly probably to try to win them back to the Democrats because he's that kind of sheepdog. So Ro Khanna here is groveling over NATO, groveling over sanctions, groveling over the fact that Nancy Pelosi could be triggering a World War III scenario with China by visiting Taiwan, talking about the United States as the greatest country in the world. Who are they? Imagine that. Just write that down on a piece of paper. How does that look? Seems a little racist to me. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Scratch that. A lot of bit. That is just racism. That's racist imperialist logic. Who are they? Who is China to determine what happens within its own territory, within its own nation, within its own sovereign right, within its own airspace, within its own jurisdiction? Who are they? The United States, thousands of miles away, has that right, actually, according to Ro Khanna. The United States can do whatever it wants because it's the indispensable nation. Wrong, Ro Khanna. The United States is an empire in decline, and you are on the wrong side of it. You are riding that dying horse into the grave. And maybe we should say good riddance. But certainly what you're trying to do is take us all with you. That's what Ro Khanna is trying to do. That's what sheepdogging is. We're not going to a nice, lovely farm here. We're not going to eat good. We're not going to enjoy the sunshine and hang out with that person who is, she's all famous now. That farmer with the ostrich or whatever, right? We're not hanging out with them, and the birds and the deer and the animals. No, you're sheepdogging us into a nuclear wasteland. That's what Ro Khanna is doing. Sheepdogging you and I and everyone else who considers themselves the left, progressive, revolutionary into a nuclear wasteland. And Ro Khanna doesn't give a damn about it. The way that he talks, who are they? Who is China? Well, China is 20+% of the world's population. China is the fastest growing economy in the world. China is going to be the number one economy in GDP terms before you can turn the age of 70, 60, whatever. I don't know how old this guy is. Less than a decade from now. PPP terms, China is the biggest economy in the world. China eradicated poverty, extreme poverty. China's beaten the brakes off the United States in renewable energy, high technology, high-speed rail, public infrastructure, digital currency. I don't know. Seems like China is something to me. China is a leader in multilateral institutions, a signatory to over a couple of hundred treaties. The United States doesn't like to sign any treaties. I don't know. Seems like China is something. China's leading into a $1 trillion Belt and Road Initiative, which has over 140 countries already involved, thousands of projects. What's the United States doing? I don't know, Ro. Seems like China has the right to not only determine within its own sovereign jurisdiction what happens within it. I think it has the right to do that. International law says that. Read the Geneva Conventions. Do some reading. But China also is a force in the world. Don't get it twisted. China's military is nowhere near as big as the United States. Nowhere near as flooded with money. I think it's I think it's almost 3 or 4 times smaller, despite having a population that's about 4 or 5 times bigger. Doesn't matter. China will beat the brakes off of the U.S. military. Don't even try it. It's a warning. That's a warning, Ro Khanna. Don't even try it. And if you want to try it, go there yourself. Do it. Just try it. You'll be detained and imprisoned so fast, you don't even know what would happen. You'll be going through jet lag in a cell. You don't understand the discipline of the People's Liberation Army, of the Chinese Revolution, of China as a sovereign nation. All those old weapons, all of those ridiculous, aging, crusty old weapons, billions of dollars worth of them dumped onto Taiwan, isn't going to do jack shit to China. China is looking to peacefully reunify. It could have militarily done so years ago. But what did China do? China respected its end of the bargain. China has been nothing but a good faith player in the joint communiques process, in the restoring of diplomatic relations between the U.S. and China, in respecting Taiwan's autonomy. It's been the U.S. every single time violating it over and over and over again, violating it. Let's get into some of those examples. Let's read this. First of all, let's read the article about, we're going to read the article about the history of Taiwan first. It's very short. Then we're going to get into some material, okay, about the One China principle. All right. I have some things pulled up. So let's go to this article first, okay? I think this article it's from 2020, so it's during the Trump administration. But it goes over the historical facts that it seems like Ro Khanna doesn't care about. This is from the China's ambassador to the UK, wrote this. It's very short. And it goes over just all of the things that Ro Khanna doesn't seem to care about. Doesn't seem to care about history. Doesn't seem to care about what actually happened with regard to Taiwan. I really would question whether Ro Khanna knows one where Taiwan is on a map. I would question whether Ro Khanna knows anything about politics in Taiwan. I would question if he knows anything about politics in China. I would really question that. I would love to question him on it. I would love that opportunity. But I'm working to try to find a contact because this is a big deal. Ro Khanna is committing an extremely grave mistake, but for him it's not a mistake. This is how he serves the empire. This is how he does it. This is how the Democrats do it. Pelosi's lapdog. I would love for him to question that characterization. He probably wouldn't even try because, he's got to say, I respect Speaker Pelosi even when he's defending her. So let's set the record straight, says Liu Xiaoming. That was the, I don't know if they're still the ambassador to the United Kingdom. Somebody said Sabby. I'll hit up Sabby. Let's set the record straight on Taiwan. Liu Xiaoming, June 24th, 2020. All right, so this is not outdated because this is mostly about the history, okay? So Liu Xiaoming says, the recent claim by a British politician that, quote, China's hostility to Taiwan threatens the global order, end quote, potentially upending the global order that has given us peace and prosperity since 1945, is a distortion of historical facts and completely wrong. Let's get the facts straight. Taiwan, first, has been an inseparable part of China's territory since ancient times. Sorry about that. Since China's government set up administrative institutions in Taiwan as early as the 12th century. After the First Sino-Japanese War of 1894 to 1895, through which Japan sought to colonize China, the court of the Qing dynasty was forced to sign the Treaty of Shimonoseki and ceded Taiwan to Japan. So this is when Taiwan became a colony of Japan. Very important history. This was followed by persistent efforts of the Taiwan compatriots to fight Japanese colonialists until the victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and World Anti-Fascist War brought Taiwan back to the motherland. That was in 1945 or 19. Well, there was some declaration. We'll get to it. But do you notice what China calls World War II? The World Anti-Fascist War. We don't call that here in the United States. We don't call it the World Anti-Fascist War here in the United States. And the War of Resistance against Japanese aggression, of course, was a lot longer. So China actually, the Second World War for China was a lot longer. It spanned from the mid-30s all the way to the mid for nearly a decade of aggression from Japan, just absolutely seeking to colonize most of China, if not all of China, trying to gain full control. That's where there was a united front. It was, short-lived, relatively, between the People's Liberation Army and the KMT, the nationalists. But it happened because there was this threat. So on December 1st, 1943, China, the United States, and the United Kingdom signed the Cairo Declaration. China, the United States, and the United Kingdom, signed the Cairo Declaration, which stipulates that all the territories that Japan had stolen from the Chinese, including Taiwan, were to be returned to China. This is before the revolution. While serving as Chinese ambassador to Egypt, I visited Mena House, where the Cairo Declaration was signed to recall the historic event that defined the post-war international order. In 1945, July 26, China, the US, and the UK then signed the Potsdam Declaration, which reiterated the terms of the Cairo Declaration shall be carried out. On August 15, 1945, Japan surrendered and acknowledged the Potsdam Declaration, and Taiwan was returned to Chinese sovereignty. The current state of separation between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait is a result of the ensuing civil war in China and interference of the US. So what they're saying here is that in 1945, essentially, finally, when the war ended, the anti-fascist war known as World War II ended, Japan was forced to surrender. Japan gave back Taiwan to China, not to the United States, not to itself. It didn't give Taiwan back to Taiwan. Actually, most people called it Formosa back then. No one was really saying Taiwan as much, but it was called Formosa. And that's a Portuguese word, I believe. And even just these historical facts, they say, shows that Taiwan is part of China. But The failure to accept this and the backpedaling and upending of the global order that has ensured peace and prosperity. This is what? Failure to accept this is the backpedaling and upending of the global order that has ensured peace and prosperity since 1945. Second, the One China principle is the broad consensus of the international community. In October 1971, the 26th session of the United Nations General Assembly adopted Resolution 2758, restoring the seat and all lawful rights of the People's Republic of China at the UN. It has been an agreement of the international community that there is but one China in the world. Taiwan is part of China, and the government of the People's Republic of China is the sole legal government representing the whole of China. So there isn't a Taiwan in China. There isn't a Taiwan as some sort of secondary representative. There isn't any kind of special arrangement for Taiwan. Taiwan is part of China. There's only one representative at the United Nations, and that's the People's Republic of China. The One China principle is the political foundation of the bilateral relationship between China and 180 countries that have diplomatic relations with China. In the joint communique on the agreement of the exchange of ambassadors, a 1972 agreement between the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and the People's Republic of China, the UK explicitly pledged that it acknowledged the position of the Chinese government that Taiwan is a province of the People's Republic of China. So this is about the UK. But there was also, of course, right, the joint communiques, which we'll get to, between the United States and China. So 1972, the UK signed an agreement saying that the position of the Chinese government, Taiwan as a province of the People's Republic of China, is recognized, and that the government of the PRC is the sole legal representative, legal government of China. Third, China remains committed to the policy of peaceful reunification, resolving the Taiwan question, and realizing the reunification of the nation is a solemn and sacred mission of all Chinese people is in the fundamental interest of the Chinese nation. So, peaceful reunifications, okay? That's the policy. That's obviously the policy. If it wasn't obviously the policy, there would have been a war by now. Because it's not like there aren't U.S. weapons flooded in Taiwan. It's not like there isn't reasons to provoke. The basic policy of the Chinese government on addressing the Taiwan question is peaceful reunification in one country, two systems. This policy serves the interests of the future of the country and nation, respects history as well as the reality on the ground, represents a down-to-earth approach, and accommodates the interests of all parties. We would like to make the utmost effort and with the utmost sincerity to achieve peaceful reunification, and this is the established policy of the Chinese government. That being said, safeguarding national unity, here we go, and territorial integrity is a sacred right of every sovereign nation. This is a basic principle of international law. Every sovereign nation has the right to take all means necessary to safeguard its sovereignty and territorial integrity. The decision of the Chinese government of not promising no use of force but reserving all necessary options is targeting external interference as well as Taiwan independence elements and their separatist activities rather than Taiwan compatriots. The compatriots on both sides of the Taiwan Strait should pursue peace, safeguard peace, and enjoy peace together. The invasions of the Western powers since the First Opium War, which began in 1840, inflicted poverty, weakness, and suffering on the Chinese nation. Generations of Chinese have made heroic and persistent efforts to pursue national independence, liberation, and reunification. That is why we cherish national independence and reunification and aspire for prosperity and security. Peace is deeply cherished in Chinese culture. This determines that China is firmly committed to the path of peaceful development in a defense policy that is defensive in nature. In the past 71 years since its founding of the People's Republic of China, China has never started a single war or conflict, nor has it occupied the tiniest piece of land of other countries. China is the only country in the world that pledges in its constitution that it, quote, adheres to the path of peaceful development, end quote. So no one can block this process. Taiwan must be and will be reunited with China. That is the position. This is the ambassador. This is the government position. They're talking about if you cling to the Cold War, you urge them to do different. Cold War position, urge them to do differently. I'm sure he would say the same thing to Ro Khanna. So that's just a brief history. And now I want to show you one particular. So there's 3 joint communiques, okay? All of them at some level. And we're not going to go over all 3, but I'm going to go over commentary about a joint communique that's very important. Actually, maybe the most important one, given how the level of interference in Taiwan has been rendered so extreme, right? That's developed so extremely. And that is the 3rd joint communique of 1982. So there's one with Nixon during the first negotiations of diplomatic relations, right? So the 1972, there was one in 75 with Gerald Ford, and there was one in 1982. And all of these joint communiques outline, in some respect, the One China principle, but really it outlines how the US and China are going to treat each other economically, bilaterally, how they're going to handle issues. And it was an agreement. This is a bilateral agreement. This is supposed to be the letter of the law for both countries, at least when you're acting in good faith. But they're not acting in good faith. The United States is not acting in good faith. I would love for Ro Khanna to come on here and tell me an example of China violating the joint communiques. Some might say, oh, look at all the military. Look at all the military drills. I would love to see how China would behave in the South China Sea, in right off of its coast. I mean, Taiwan is right off the coast of China, right? I would love to see how China operates inside of its own airspace were it not surrounded by military bases of the United States and were it not surrounded by spy planes. There are spy planes flying all around Taiwan. There's always activity, naval activity. The United States has sent more than a few warships in the last month to the Taiwan Straits. I would love to see how China would behave if that were not the case. I consider that a defense of sovereignty. That's not a violation of the joint communique. The joint communique isn't saying where you can't defend your sovereignty. No. China would never sign such an agreement because that's against international law. So I'd love to see the example. Give me an example of where China has been an egregious violator, as we're always told. So aggressive, about to start war with Taiwan. I'd love to see the examples. Ro Khanna couldn't name a damn one, I bet. He wouldn't. He wouldn't be able to. All right, so I got to speed this up a little bit. So let's look at this one report on the Joint Communique of 1982, which is probably the most important one. So this is from CGTN. It says, expert U.S. recognizes one China principle while emphasizing peaceful resolution of Taiwan issue in communiques. And so this is a little recording on this issue. Okay, it's a little video. Let's see if it'll play.
I think it's important to recognize that in the 72 and 79 communiques, as well as the Taiwan Relations Act, there was a clear duality. That is, on the one hand, the U.S. recognized PRC as the only representative of the one China. On the other hand, it stressed on the peaceful resolution and said any non-peaceful means to resolve Taiwan issue will be deemed as threats to regional peace and security. So it is with that duality that U.S. continue to exercise its principles and its policies to sell arms to Taiwan, including the 1982 communique. In that communique, even with the promise to reduce arms sales gradually, it contained a similar quid pro quo. That is for PRC to continue search for a peaceful resolution and for the U.S. to reduce sales gradually. So with that particular stance, the U.S. has often cited PRC's increased and intensified hostility or military threats to Taiwan in recent years to justify its increase in arms sales or military cooperation with Taiwan. That particular sense can send very dangerous signal to the Taiwan independence fraction. And that signal creates an illusion that should there be any military confrontation across the Taiwan Straits, the United States will intervene directly. With that particular illusion, there can be miscalculation and prove to be very detrimental to a peaceful resolution across Taiwan Straits in the long run.
So there you have it. You know, this is Dr. Joanna Lei, from Taipei, talking about how the U.S. did in 1982 promise to reduce arms sales. It did. That was the joint communique. But they had quid pro quo loopholes, right? Kind of like okay, we'll do that if you do this, right? And so they stipulated that, okay, we'll reduce arms sales, wink, wink, maybe, probably not, but we'll do it if you find a peaceful resolution, they said, to the Taiwan question. China was like, yeah, we're working on that. We're trying to do that. In the United States, well, it hasn't happened yet, so we're going to keep sending arms there. You see how that works? You see how the United States is not a good faith actor here. But in the 1982 joint communique, it's very clear that those arms sales would be reduced and they would be ended in a final way, meaning they would end completely over the course of the years. But one thing she didn't mention was actually the 1982 joint communique not only says a reduced number of arms sales, but that they would never exceed the amount of the year before. So what that means is that there's always a reduction. And what happens when there's always a reduction? Well, eventually you get to zero, right? So if you can't sell the same amount that you did the year before, you have to. So no matter even if you were to reduce it by $1, each year, it might take a billion, 3 billion years to get to zero, but nonetheless, the trajectory is zero. But this is how hard it is to negotiate with an imperialist country, like with the imperialist hegemon like the United States. They don't have any respect for international law. They think of themselves international law. Ro Khanna is telling you he thinks he's international law. And that's how damaging this all is. This is absolutely an incredible act of aggression that the United States is on with Taiwan. And Ro Khanna is all in for it because he's Nancy Pelosi's lapdog. He doesn't know jack shit about any of this. He knows nothing. He's not smart on this issue. I don't know why. Not on foreign policy. He just repeats the status quo because he doesn't understand it. Oh, I guess he's on with Sabby right now. So I'll have to catch that later. But I'll have to talk to him. I hope I can get him, on this program as well. Because I would love to take him to task on this issue. Task on this issue. So there you have it. Joint communiques being violated. The United States violating UN Resolution 2758, supporting separatism. Nancy Pelosi going to talk to separatists. That's what the DPP is. Doesn't matter that, sure, they are the ruling party inside of Taiwan's government, but that doesn't make it okay, right? That those forces are trying to rip themselves apart from China through a diligent both propaganda and military campaign. It's very dangerous. It's against the status quo. It's against international law. And it threatens and risks a broader war that China doesn't want. Nobody wants. The vast majority of people don't want this. That's why you had Nicaragua. You've had other countries stop diplomatically recognizing Taiwan as China. There's only a few countries left that did so, and a lot of them are stepping back from it because it's a suicidal policy, right? Things have gotten really bad, and it doesn't hold any benefits anymore. It did when Taiwan was being propped up and China was being attacked, and there was all sorts of Cold War reasons. Even if you were a progressive government, you had some issues, right? But most progressive peoples, most people in the world really see one China. They only see one China, and only the most reactionary forces. Who are Nancy Pelosi's allies right now? Who are they? They're Mike Pompeo and Newt Gingrich. Not necessarily even the kind of Democratic Party lore that we would expect, right? You have Biden. You have basically the whole Democratic Party administration saying, Nancy, roll it back. Let's not do this right now. Doesn't mean that they're not as hawkish as Nancy Pelosi. It just means that they're not in this fight right now. Because it would be suicide. It would be the end of the Biden administration. It would be the end of the United States as we know it to do this. So I would be very shocked if she took that step. But if she did, then we really only have a month left to prepare for what will be a cataclysmic global seismic wave of conflict. We only have a month to prepare, and we got to get on the right side. Hate to tell you that right side is China's side. You got to get on the right side. I don't hate to say it. I love to say it because it's the truth. But so many people go, oh, it's not China. I got an email today. Somebody sent me an email today being like, oh, well, you treat China as perfect and all of this. No, China's just correct on this issue. China's correct on many different issues that I share alignment with, on development, on poverty, on peace, on climate change. It's just an alignment with my politics, an alignment with socialist politics, I believe. Of course, it's not perfect. Purity tests are the thing of infantile bourgeois orders. Purity tests. That's not dialectics. There is no purity test. Socialism is a struggle to the death for life. Socialism is an intermediary stage. Socialism inherits the old. It inherits the bourgeois order. What did Karl Marx say? It's stamped with the birth pangs, with the birthmarks of the old capitalist order, which means China is stamped with the birthmarks of semi-feudalism, of colonialism, of the century of humiliation. China is stamped with divides that sought to weaken the country and destroy it from within and from without. Sure, China has problems. China has many problems. China's not. I love when people say, oh, China's not perfect. You can't get Facebook in China. Well, you like the CIA, if you like the intelligence agencies taking all of your data, surveilling you, suppressing all of your content, and literally waging counterinsurgency warfare on anything that's good, then sure. Criticize China for not letting Facebook in. Many people have VPNs in China and they still access it anyway, but China also has a number of their own social media. Why can't countries have their own social media? What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. Free speech is not devoid of context. There's an economic base. What did Karl Marx say? There's a superstructure that's informed by the economic base. What comes first? Materialism, the material world, the economic base of the world. That comes first. Everything else, culture, everything is shaped by that. It's not necessarily like a linear relationship. It's a dialectical one. Doesn't mean that the economics shape all culture. Doesn't mean that culture shapes all economics. It means, though, that all human organization stems from the economic base principally, which means that in what we're talking about right now, we have to deal with the economic base. We are talking about an economic base. All right. It's absolutely ridiculous to not understand this, to not understand where China's coming from, to not understand that, sure, there's still plenty of places in China where there's a toilet revolution right now because many places in China don't have toilets. I was in some of them. You can still go to the big cities. You can still go to the cities, and there will be places without toilets, without the toilets that you'd expect to have in a highly developed society, the kind of plumbing you'd expect to have. That's because of the birthmarks of the old order. Yeah, and there's a lot of other kind of birthmarks that they have to go through. At least they acknowledge them. The United States, what did Ro Khanna say? The perfect country. We're the best country. We're the best. Who are they? We're the best country. China, we don't have anything to say to China. What a suicidal, idiotic position to take. Suicidal, idiotic position to take. So, lastly, I'm just going to go through this quickly. Well, actually, I still got 15, 20 minutes. Let's talk about what Ro Khanna is not talking about. Let's talk about this. Actually, let me go in the chat. I'm going to go in the chat. Will you bear with me? I want to go in Sabby's chat and just say, hey, I want to talk to you about this. Let's see. Oh, he's in his car. So I'm just going to say on Pelosi's trip to Taiwan on CNN. All right. Maybe you can help me out too. I see some of you all are also in her chat. So I just sent that in her chat. I don't know if it went through. Let's see. I don't know what I wonder what they're talking about. Let's see. Okay. So I sent that. Maybe y'all can help me out too. Well, I'm going to reach out to her. I'll definitely reach Sabby's a good person. I'm going to have her on the program soon. All right, everyone. So Yeah, that's a good point. Steven said, I want to raid her team. Yeah, don't do that. I wasn't expecting anyone to do that. But even just a few people saying, hey, or even, yeah. So let's talk about what Ro Khanna is not talking about. While I'm pulling this up, though, let's see what the like ratio is here, guys. Let's see how we're doing. I think we're probably doing okay. Let's see. All right, yeah, there's more likes than viewers, but share it, yes. And then, of course, the other thing you can do is help this channel remain sustainable, help my work remain sustainable. Patreon.com/DannyHaiFong. That helps keep this work sustainable, okay? That helps make sure that I'm able to continue this work without the hardship. I mean, there's still struggles, of course, but helps keep this work sustainable. So, San Francisco Chronicle wrote earlier this month, are the police capable of changing? Data on racial profiling in California shows the problem is only getting worse. You guys, there's a war at home, okay? So Ro Khanna is kissing the feet of Pelosi, supporting supporting the potential for a third world war with China, okay? While he's doing that, while he's stumping for NATO, he's saying nothing about this issue, the war at home. Data on racial profiling in California shows the problem is only getting worse. So let's just go over some of this. It's a long article with a lot of personal anecdotes. I'll put it in the chat so you all can read it later. So just look out for that link in the chat. The San Francisco Chronicle wrote about this. I'm just going to skip around to the data points where I find them. But it says, for close to a decade, China has pushed local police agencies to combat a longstanding pattern of racial profiling with new training and policies designed to confront the unconscious bias of officers. But these efforts have done little to root out vast racial disparities in traffic and pedestrian stops, according to the Chronicle analysis drawing from data that agencies are now required to collect. So this is all from police data, okay? It says the disparity widened in 11 of the state's biggest law enforcement agencies from 2019 to 2020. In San Francisco and LA, the Chronicle found Black people were nearly 6 times more likely to be stopped by police than white residents in 2020. When factoring in the relative city populations of the racial groups in Oakland, Black people were 5.3 times more likely to be stopped. In Sacramento, Black people were 3.7 times more likely to be stopped. So here's some of the graphs, okay? So here you have 2,000 for every 2,313 stops, 2,313 stops per 10,000 were Black people. It says Black people are stopped at far higher rates than white people in San Francisco. Below is a visualization of San Francisco stops. So this is Pelosi's district, right? The person he's kissing the feet of. For every 10,000 Black residents in the city, police stopped 2,313 compared with 389 for every 10,000 white San Franciscans. So you see that difference there? That's a big difference. That's a huge gap. A huge gap. That's more than, what is that? That's 5-6 times, right? 7 times. Huge. So I think there's another graph. Is there? Here we go. Here's the stop rates in 2020 by race and ethnicity, okay? So here's LAPD, Sacramento, Oakland, Riverside. So this is basically a lot of the big, I think San Jose is in his district. So there you see 510 Black people, 200. So purple is Hispanic, Black is green. I get blue. White is orange. Asian is lighter green. So this, I'd say blue is Black. Asian population is green. White is orange. Purple is Hispanic. So you look here. You have in San Jose, which is him, I believe. Fresno, I believe, is also in his district. You have 500. You have nearly a difference of, what is it, 63 white people. That's nearly a 10 times difference. 510 stops are Black people in 2020. 63 are white people. That's nearly 10 times the rate. 10 times. 10 times. Okay? There is an absolute extreme, there's a war, right? And I see people talking about income. I'll just say this. Vast majority of people who are being stopped on the street, regardless of race, are going to be working class people. They're just going to be. So I wouldn't take too much stock in not having income here because, well, I guess, I would not expect wealthy people to be stopped at any kind of the same rate, given how wealthy people live. All right. They live much differently. And this is police agencies. So police are not necessarily going to report everything. So they're not going to report everything. But this is still very significant because the vast majority, first of all, vast majority of Black people, Latinos, even white people, right, in these areas are going to be working class. Vast majority. And especially those who are being stopped. So the race disparity is very important here. It is absolutely a fundamental example of how the police wage war on Black people. This is about the class divide, guys, right? Waging this kind of race war, which is what the United States has done for centuries. This is part of the class divide. This is how you terrorize a specific population to be able to better exploit everybody, right? If you super exploit one, you violently repress one, you can increase the rate of exploitation of all. That's just the proof in the pudding. Theodore Allen wrote a great book called The Invention of the White Race. I would highly recommend reading all 3 volumes talking about this phenomenon. He gives concrete examples during the industrial phases of the United States, of other societies with racism involved, right, developing under capitalism. He specifically focuses on the U.S. context, but he proves that factories, corporations, in their early phases of industrialization would use racism as a way to increase the rate of profit. That's what this is all about. This is what this is all about. And by creating this level of hatred, of vitriol, dehumanization, I think is more apt. Instead of hate, I like to use dehumanization because that's what racism is all about. And that's what this is all about. How do you dehumanize people? How do you dehumanize a people, Black people, Latinos? How do you do that? Well, you do this. You stop them at incredible rates. You traumatize them. You gentrify them out of the neighborhoods. You price them out of the neighborhoods, right? You destroy the fabric of their lives. Mass incarceration, stop and frisk, all of that. You destroy the fabric of their lives. That's how you super exploit. That's how you make record profits. That's how you create a prison within a prison. That's how you create an occupation force like the police operate today. So I just want to show you that. That's what Ro Khanna is not addressing. When he is railing on about how much, when he's going on and on and on and on and on about how much he loves NATO, the U.S. is the greatest country in the world, that's because he's not addressing this. He's not addressing the problems right here. He's not addressing the wars at home. He's too busy lapdogging for Nancy Pelosi for the wars abroad. That is, I think, that's like full circle imperialism. Scapegoat abroad, ignore at home, allow fundamental contradictions to fester, allow working class people, allow Black people, allow oppressed people to suffer. That's what Ro Khanna is telling you when he is behaving in this way. That's what he's telling you. Destroying people's lives, ignoring the destruction, and then going on CNN talking about the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party. Oh, NATO. We love NATO. NATO's doing so much. It's going to bankrupt China. You might want to rethink that in the midst of a recession and inflation crisis. Who exactly is being bankrupted by what? The U.S.'s actions are destroying the U.S.'s own economy, Europe's own capitalist economy. These wars are doing that too. It's just such hubris. But this is what an empire is. This is what American exceptionalism is. This is what imperialism is. It's full of hubris. And sometimes, again, dialectics, that hubris can overtake and can become, it can be in command of politics. It can be in command of politics. That's why you see this tension. That's why you see this disagreement afoot in Washington over this Pelosi visit. But anyway, guys, this was a great stream. Keep liking the video. I am going to have to head out in about a couple of minutes. Thank you so much for coming, though. Keep liking the video, sharing the video. Please do hit the notifications bell, of course. And one last pitch for the Patreon in order to help sustain this work. That's patreon.com/DannyHaiFong. This went really fast today. This went really fast today. So please do support. I'm going to actually I think there was a super chat. Let's see. Super chat. The chat has been busy. Thanks for keeping it busy. Where is it? Oh, I guess it was kind of early, huh? I wish there was a place I could just see the super chats right here. Here we go. Thank you, John McCarthy. Someone needs to explain to Pelosi there won't be ice cream or gin in the bomb shelter. They'll try to hoard it. They'll try to maybe she'll try. She'll definitely try to hoard it in the bomb shelter. Definitely. I'm waiting for California's version of what New York City did with the warning. Right, you all saw that. We covered it here, Margaret and I. The New York City's warning. So thanks for that super chat, guys. And there's another one here. Chima Madhu said no Chinese politician would even be allowed to go to a Caribbean country. That's true. No, that's so true. Or I wouldn't be able to go to, like, if China was in Puerto Rico, for example, that would cause a huge stir. I've seen that analogy before. John McCarthy with a super chat. Donetsk Republic proclaimed tomorrow Day of Remembrance of child victims of Ukraine's war on Donbass. Salute to the heroes of Donbass and the Donetsk Republic. Thanks for the super chat. So, all right, guys, I think I'm gonna have to cut it off here. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate the support, of course. I'll probably be on Thursday. I'm trying to get guests, but it's been hard. I'm going to try my best to get on Thursday, regardless, see what developments come about. And yeah, get back into writing as well. So salute everyone. Again, like the video before you go. And of course, patreon.com/DannyHaiFong is the way you can support me. Also, do subscribe to my Telegram. That's always free. I do send all notifications here as well if YouTube isn't working out. For some reason, I'm losing Telegram subscribers, so I just put that in the chat as well. It's also in the link tree. Go to my link tree in the description. You can find my Telegram there and everything else as well. All right, guys, salute. Take care. Bye-bye. Peace out.